Hey friends, welcome back to the Alternatives Podcast. I'm looking forward to today, especially as we look towards 2021. We have a really good topic that I hope will challenge you as you plan the new year. We have Jeremy Johnson back with us, which we are very excited to have him here. You've met Jeremy before. So Jeremy, instead of telling us all things about yourself, our guests already know you. So would you be able to share a fun fact about yourself?
Oh, sure. Well, if anybody who has probably followed me on social media during all this COVID time, um, the last, I don't know, what, 7, 8 months, one of the things that I've found a kind of a love again for is baking and cooking and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'll give you the quick version. I went to wood shop in junior high, and my teacher was missing a couple fingers, and I thought, this is not the class for me because I like my fingers. And so I switched from woodshop to home economics. So Mrs. Bundy was instrumental in my love for baking in 7th and 8th grade at Hidden Valley Middle School. And then I ended up taking more foods class than I should have at Orange Glen with Mrs. Umbro. And so over the last few, at least once a week, I'm baking cookies or some type of dessert or messing something up and then trying to figure out how to make it taste good again. So that's yeah, there's a fun fact, and yeah, I really enjoy it.
Well, I'm really sad today that we're not all together in person then, because we could have had some of your yummy baking.
Oh, don't worry, Kana. I've got some treats coming your guys' way.
Oh, yes.
Oh, great. Well, we're going to start out with our first question today. What is the wisdom in evaluating where we are now and where we can grow? So we're wanting to get some insight for how we can look ahead to 2021 and how we can grow, but we have to look at where we are now first to see where we can grow.
Oh, totally. I mean, like realistically, like everybody loves the idea of growth, right? Like we whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual, emotional, whatever it is, personal growth, everybody loves the idea. And so it's until that growth process starts that we start kind of going, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. Everybody signs up for a gym membership typically in the beginning of the year, and they go, oh, I'm gonna get in the best shape of my life. And then they don't hire a personal trainer because they don't want somebody to tell them what to do, and they don't want accountability, and they don't. So then they go to the gym 3 days a week, and they sit there going, well, the treadmills aren't fun. Why am I doing this? And then now they've just, signed up and spent a bunch of money on something they don't need. You get a lot of people beginning of the year, they go to church going, okay, well, I'm going to grow, and this is a good way to do it. Or I'm going to take a class at, whether it's at a junior college or a college or just through the one of the city programs, because I want to grow in some way. But typically what we do is we don't do that evaluation process. We have some goal in mind. We have some idea that looks good. And we want to circumvent the process and just go, okay, well, get me there. At least that I'm speaking for myself. Like honestly, like I don't always enjoy the growth process, which the first step's that evaluation. And so where do you go from here? But if you don't understand where you're at, what steps you need to take to get to where you need to go, you don't understand where you need to grow, well, then you're kind of stuck. I was thinking about different examples. We did a survey at church a few years ago, right? We wanted to do a survey across the whole church. And so we met with the company. Luckily, one of our members owns his own online survey type company. So he's giving us some pro tips and all that. And so we're sitting there and we have all these questions that we want to know. And he's going like, these are good questions, but you expect somebody on an online survey to answer this, right? And we're going, oh, yeah, you can't do that. And so he started helping us evaluate how we ask questions. He started helping us evaluate what we actually want to know about our church, about where our people are at, how they want to grow, all this kind of stuff. And it's funny because like after a few hours with him, everything that we came in the meeting with changed for the better, because he actually knew like, okay, so here's the real goal you're trying to get to. Let's evaluate where you're at now, why you're asking these questions, how to ask these questions in a way that you're actually going to get answers that'll help you versus just a bunch of random information. And then you can take the answers that are helpful to you, reevaluate where you guys are at based off the members' info, and then take steps to grow from there. It's like, oh, So we started with the wrong questions. We weren't
Mm.
sure what our baselines were. We weren't really understanding what the goal was. And so it's you can't do, if you're not willing to spend the time to evaluate that and then change based off what you're finding out, it's really hard. So that, as far as wisdom for there, go slow and do a thorough evaluation reality check of where are things currently. So like, okay, another little side story, right? Since I said I love baking, I'll just go with that one. It was my brother-in-law's birthday, so I was going to make some cookies. So I found a recipe on Instagram. I'm like, oh, new cookie recipe. I'm going to give this one a shot. It sounds great. So when I go home on my lunch break, and I go up to Instagram to pull up the recipe, and for some reason the recipe's blocked. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, you're blocking a recipe on Instagram for the 2020 election that already kind of took place. Why are you blocking a cookie recipe? Anyway, I couldn't get the recipe. So I'm sitting there from memory going, okay, I think it's this. And then of course I put my own little spin on it. And then if anybody sees the picture, instead of like 16 nice little cookies, it turned into a whole tray of giant cookie.
Suzuki.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. And so it was super fun. It turned out really good. I ended up adding, because of the way the recipe was and what I remembered, what I didn't remember, I added more butter than flour and all yada, yada. Anyway, so it turned out to be this really good thing. But what happened? I didn't take time to actually jump in the process. I didn't take time to actually get a recipe. I just made it work. And luckily it turned out okay. But that could have gone really bad. And so you sit there and you go, oh, so if you don't start with the right pieces, you're not going to get the result you want. And so then if you want to grow, but you're not willing to figure out where you're at right now, well, how are you going to grow? It's almost impossible.
Yeah. That's really good. I think I didn't think about it as much in evaluating so much and taking time to do that. Evaluate what you're trying to do and what it's going to take without just jumping in and then having a failure or being like, oh, I'm going to the gym. And then, a month out, you're done and you haven't had a plan or things like that. So I think that's really helpful.
Oh, good.
To really take time in that process, because I always say I want whatever to be done 5 years ago. So whatever's happening right now, I wish it was done a long time ago. So
no, but you're totally right. Like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. If I would have started 5 years ago, I'd have the result now. Well, how do I get the result now without the last 5 years? And yeah.
Well, we're such an instant society as well, so we want instant results for whatever it is.
Oh, totally.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, think about it, right? That's why we have microwaves. That's why we have Keurig machines for coffee, because we don't want to sit there and actually have to grind beans and then heat up water and do it ourselves. We just want, let me put my cup down, push a button, and here it is.
Yeah. So then how have the events of 2020 changed and shaped how we should want to grow and change in 2021?
Well, okay. So think about this, right? Like, when else throughout, I don't know another time in my lifetime, and I'm sure you guys can relate to an extent, where everything stopped worldwide.
Yeah.
And now there's good and bad. There's been horrible stuff. There's been good stuff. Like tons of change with this. But you know what? Back in March, everything slowed down. And for the first time that I can remember, I had time to think. I had time to process. I had time to really evaluate without deadlines, without this or this or this. And a lot of people were in those same shoes. Now, there wasn't a whole lot you could just go do about stuff. But at the same time, for the first time in collectively as a world, our life slowed down to a point where, oh, now we can actually evaluate what it looks like to grow. Mm-hmm. And like, honestly, like I said, like, I don't think collectively everybody's had that. Mm-hmm. Now, the downside with some of the negative aspects of everything, right? So you're talking about loss of life, you're talking about illness, you're talking about loss of income and financial downfall that people have gone through. So there's all this backdrop that's hard. And so I think a lot of people have actually felt guilty about, personal growth and what they're going to do and how to plan for the next year, because they're just sitting there going, things are still a mess. But then we still have to look at the benefit of this and go, okay, so we actually have time now to evaluate where we're at in life. I especially, like, seems like a lot of people I talk to on the young adult side, right? Like, reevaluating what they want to do for careers.
Mm.
This has been a huge opportunity for them not to just go, I have to go get a job because I've got XYZ and I've got these responsibilities for these bills. They can actually stop and go, okay, what's going to fulfill purpose for me? And let's build a growth plan based off that.
Mhm.
Where a year ago they couldn't do that because it was going, oh, I've got student loans, I've got this, I've just got to get working. It's kind of like how you said, like, I want, to skip this whole 5-year process and just be here. And so I think, one of the best things that for a lot of people that have come with the last, 7-8 months was that slowdown and that time to evaluate where they just didn't have real time before.
Mhm.
So that changes it changes what your goals are, then it changes the whole growth plan.
Mhm.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's caused people to be more reflective, I think, on life and what's important and all of those things. What are some questions that they can be asking then as they're assessing their life to make potential changes in 2021?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like, I'm sure most people, if you're listening to this, at some point you've probably done like a Myers-Briggs test or like an Enneagram and different things like that, right? And you get to figure out, okay, what makes you tick a little bit? How do you process things? I mean, like, there's tons of free tools out there, so that way you can actually learn about yourself.
Mm.
And then as you learn about yourself, these questions start making a big difference. It's like I'll try to go slow. I actually wrote down a list of questions with some of these things as I was trying to think, okay, what are the things that I'm asking myself or in this evaluation process? Because I think if you really want to grow, like I said, that baseline, you have to understand where you're at. And so I was thinking, okay, what about your life do you just love? It's there's that show on Netflix, the lady would reorganize the house and she goes, does this bring you joy, right? And so it's like, but does this part of your life actually do that? Are you willing to really be honest with it and go, oh yeah, actually I love how this fills me up here. I love spending time doing this. I love, here's these aspects that oh wow, I enjoy greatly. What are those parts of your life that you don't like? What are these activities that are just draining you, that are causing you to just lose sleep or be frustrated or maybe snap at somebody you're close to? I think instead of what do you want to do, the question is, who do you want to be?
Mm.
A lot of people just kind of think, oh, okay, well, here's these steps I need to take to get to this point where I think I should be, because these people expect this. I spoke with somebody the other day about, trying to fulfill other people's expectations of him, when the truth is, well, who do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you trying to live up to somebody else's expectation when that's not who you are? And then once you kind of figure out, okay, well, who do I want to be? What gives me purpose in that?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's going to really dictate a lot of what you do to grow. Like, realistically, if outside of profession, outside of others, like, let's just talk about personal growth for a second. Like, if you're sitting there and you go, okay, I want to be able to learn a new language. Like, I have a friend who's learned 2 languages over the last 6 months, where
Wow.
they're almost fluent, probably like 7% fluent. I'm going, I can't learn a second language, and this person's learned 2 in 6 months.
Wow.
But you look, it's like that. It was just that personal challenge going, like, I want to be able to communicate better with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here's 2 languages that will help me do that. So they've spent hours and hours practicing and learning and becoming fluent, not because it was going to give them a better pay or a new job, because they wanted to talk to people more.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized, oh, I have time to do this. So what gives you purpose? And then, what's it going to take to actually get there? They knew, okay, well, so I'm going to invest, a few $100 and buy Rosetta Stone. And then I'm going to set aside time, over the next, few months to learn how to speak and how to understand and how to hear. And that's what they did. And they made a sacrifice to do that, but now they're reaping the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm.
A few other questions that, like, I ask this in a lot of the different groups I either lead or I'm a part of, right? But okay, well, what are you learning? If you're learning something, what are you going to do about it? If you're going to do something about it, what's in the way of you doing it? What help do you need to, if you're learning this and then you're going to do this and now something's in the way, what help do you need to get that thing out of the way, that roadblock, whatever it is? And then who else do you need to bring along, or who else do you need to tell?
Mm-hmm.
right? And those are little ones like, so you go, okay, so what are the big questions? What's the purpose? Who am I? All that stuff that I've got to evaluate, because that gives you a baseline for growth. And then what are you learning? What are you doing about it? What's in the way of that? What help do you need? Who else are you going to bring along? Those are those, okay, well, now I can build realistic steps, understanding, okay, this is the direction I'm going. Does that kind of make sense as far as some of the questions I ask myself and evaluate on a regular basis? Like I kind of go through probably like a self-evaluation process about every 6 months. Okay. And it's not just, oh, this year I'm going to grow this way, but it's just this, I want to know, like, am I thinking right? Am I doing the right activities? If this is where I'm going in life, am I doing the right steps to get there? And every so often you got to reevaluate and see, are you growing? So.
Yeah, those are good. And I really like how they're just so thorough. And it's more so than just like, well, what do I want to do to be better? Or, it really helps you evaluate where you are, what your values are, because if we don't know that, we don't really know where we want to go. And so that's so good, especially before you start that process of making changes. So when somebody asks all of these questions and they're looking towards 2021, realistically, how many changes can they make at once? And then how do they go about making those changes?
So I'm just going to use me as the example, because I won't speak for, like, my wife can do like 10 things at once and she does them all pretty well. So if she wants to make changes, she can literally like compartmentalize in a way and change X, Y, Z all at the same time. I can't do that. So I'm going to use me because I think that's a more probably realistic thing. So I can do one thing. I can make one change at a time pretty well. Right? Like, so if there's something, so if my goal is to improve my diet, I can put enough energy, thought, and time behind figuring out, okay, what are these little changes I need to make to improve this? Now, if I want to improve two things, let's say I want to become a better bicycle rider and I want to become a better runner. I'm probably not going to do either one well because I'm not going to take the right steps to do everything because there's not enough time. Right? So if I'm trying to change two things, I can kind of change them, but not well. Now, if you add a third thing in, I'm just going to fail at all three. Because like there's just that point where it's going to overwhelm me. I'm going to give up. And so when I think about it, it's how many changes can you make? Well, I mean, there's some things where people can make a lot of change. There's all kinds of little stuff. There's big stuff. You can jump in, just start all over. I mean, but realistically, like, the best advice I could give on that is go slow. Change isn't a sprint. Take one thing at a time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because you can have all these things, or you have, sometimes it's a crisis that happens or a situation that you say, okay, I just want to change all of these things and I don't want to do this again, or I want to, you've got this big list and it can become overwhelming, and then you feel like a failure because you haven't been able to pour into any of them well. And so I think that's really good to focus on that, because yes, there are some people, like you said, who can do a lot of different things and do them well, but for the most part, one area or another is getting shortchanged if we've got too many things going on. So,
exactly.
Well, we were talking about this a little bit before we went live on video, but sometimes in our life we want to make changes, but there's people that can make this difficult because we live with people, we have family, we have friends, we have jobs. So how do we make changes when we can't change the people around us? I mean, we know we're only responsible for changing ourselves, but how do we do that in those situations, or what would you suggest?
Oh, this is such an important question. Like, realistically, I'm so glad you asked, because it's like it's a vital thing. And we think we always assume we're making growth or changes in a bubble or a vacuum, and all the stuff around us doesn't affect what we do. And a lot of the time what's around us is people, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, being part of a family, like, I don't make a unilateral big growth or change plan without talking to the people in my life, which is, my wife and then kids, because it's whatever I do is going to directly affect them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I make a drastic career move, like I did, 6 years ago or whatever, to move from the business world to the vocational ministry world, like, and my wife's not on board with that, oh, that's a change that's going to ruin everything. And so it's like, I have to make sure now, but that also means, we've got to work together on it.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember sitting there, and I had a boss, and, they're like, oh, so this is what you want to do. Yeah. Oh, well, I think, this is why you wouldn't be good at it. And this is how you're going to lose money. And this, and just told me all these things about church they hated. Now, so if I let him dictate what I felt like was, this change I needed to make career-wise, well, then I wouldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have pursued something else. And so I realized, like, who you start to take advice from, who you have in your life really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized is this guy, he helped me grow a lot of different ways in business. He helped me focus. He helped me apply myself in different ways. I learned a lot from him. But then when I opened up about, something that was personal, something that was a big change, a big growth plan for me, that was also scary, because you're going, okay, I'm leaving, 12 years in the business world doing essentially one job to changing to something totally different. And now this person that was a mentor is saying, oh no, this is a horrible idea. Now, you sit there and you go, okay, so where's that coming from? And we had a few conversations about it, but truth was, he didn't want to, he thought, because his belief system was different, well, that wouldn't make sense for me, so that I'm going to tell you it doesn't make sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't listen to his advice, because that would have completely changed the trajectory of what I was working towards.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, okay, so who did I consult? Why I had other mentors, I had other friends that said, no, this is the right step.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was supportive of it. Kids were supportive of it. A couple other, like I said, different people I had volunteered with and served with, they were going, no, this is the right time for you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But then, this one person who said, well, no, if you do this, it's going to affect me negatively. So they didn't want me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had to put them out. I had to keep them at arm's distance.
Mm-hmm.
And the easier thing to do is just going, okay, well, I guess I'll just quit. Right? Because that's what a lot of the time we let somebody who has a different perspective on life or what they're going through, they don't understand all the things they didn't do the baseline evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't take time to plan and put the right steps in place to grow in the way we need to. And then we let their negative experience or point of view or just difference of opinion cause us to kind of crumble or fall apart with it or give up and quit. And so we have to take, we want to get good advice. We want to get wise counsel, but at the same time, there's going to be kind of those negative people, those naysayers who just tell us like, hey, this is a bad idea, without actually thinking why it's a bad idea, without doing the evaluation. And so you got to take what they say with a grain of salt. We have to be able to put them kind of at arm's distance and say, you know what, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your point of view, but here's why I'm doing this. And then we have to be able to stand on that. If we did the right, like I said, if we're doing the right evaluation, we're going to feel okay doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we didn't, then we're going to be like, oh no, what do I do? And so that's where it's like, there's always going to be some negative people.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be strong enough to say, I don't need you in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need your advice right now in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like we want to take in wisdom, but at the same time, like I said, if we've done the evaluation, we see that, okay, well, step A is going to lead to step B, which will lead to step C, and this person's saying, well, no, you need to do X, Y, Z. We have to be okay saying, no, I'm good doing A, B, C.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good doing this plan. This is how we're going to grow.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that, as you were sharing that story, I think is just something to remember is just to be intentional about who you're getting wisdom from and be intentional about who you're getting counsel from. Like, do they know your heart? Do they know your desires? Do they know your values? Do they know why you want to do what you want to do? versus, and a lot of times like seeking counsel from somebody that has those same values as well, versus this mentor of yours that was just in a different place. But yeah, I just think that as you were sharing that, that's something that came to my mind. So important to be intentional about that.
Well, it's like I shared earlier, like there, you know, I was talking with a guy the other day who felt like he had to live up to these expectations that weren't real for him, right? So these expectations weren't stated, you know, clearly, but he felt this pressure from other people to be a certain way. It's like, no, that's not good for you, you know. But if we need that affirmation, if we need there to fulfill somebody else's goal, like it's going to crush us, and so we have to step away from it.
Well, and as you talk about the goal, you know, you recognize that we're each responsible for ourselves. But, a few years ago, I had heard this differentiation between goals and desires.
Yeah.
And goals are something that only we can be responsible for, because other people, if they're a part of our goal, then like you said, we could have a lot of chaos or a lot of disappointment because other people can mess up our goals. But we can have desires that other people are a part of, and we can desire to do a certain thing. But those goals that we have can only be between ourselves, because we're the only one who can stop that from happening. And so remembering in those situations with changes and with other people, hey, this is my personal goal. And as long as, you know, my family supports it and all of that, but our family still can block our goals because, you know, they may not have the same vision as we do, but to really hold us tightly to those things, I think, and have desires for ourselves and beyond. But those personal goals, we can go for it and do that.
Well, that's such a great point about the difference between goals, desires, and then who we let speak into each one. So totally right on.
Yeah, but really, like Hannah said, and as you were sharing, just listening, seeking that wise counsel, paying attention to who we're listening to, and then knowing that, hey, ultimately we're responsible for those final decisions, and we're responsible to God as well in that. And so we don't have to make those decisions based on anyone else. So, that's great. Well, is there any final thing that you'd leave with us, Jeremy, for planning for 2021? Anything else that might be helpful for us?
Oh, let's see. So just kind of summarizing. But so go slow, be honest with where you're at and where you need to go. Ask yourself the right questions, because that's going to help you plan the next step from there. And then last but not least, don't be afraid of change. Like I said, we all like the idea, but then once we start getting into it, it gets scary. And that means, I have to do things different. I have to give stuff up. I can't do things this way. But don't be afraid of it. Step into it. And because usually the outcome's always worth the growth process.
Yeah. That's good advice. Don't be afraid of that change. As much as some of us think we like change, it's really difficult. Change is
it is. It's really hard. Like I pretend like I love it and it's not hard, but no, it's hard letting go of things and doing something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what is a recent challenge that you've overcome or are overcoming right now?
Oh boy. I think, like, realistically, I could joke and say, it's, I put too much butter in my cookies yesterday, right? Like, or, like there's that little daily stuff, but like a big thing for me, it's like, I think life was really busy pre-COVID. COVID hit, everything, it forced us to change how we did stuff, how we communicated. We didn't get to be with people. It was all, I'm a very relational person. I like being with people. And then I had to go all digital, right? And then we start coming back a little bit. Then when it gets pulled back, and part of this, like what I'm overcoming is just that okay, am I okay just taking the next step? Because there's still so much uncertainty with, okay, what's next month going to look like? What's next year going to look like? As a church, we keep trying to make plans for, okay, well, we're going to do this series and we're going to do this, and here's what we're going to do here and here. I was meeting with one of my leaders yesterday, and we're trying to plan out next season. And there's this part where it's just like everything we do and what I'm trying to probably the biggest challenge for me. I like to plan, and then I like to put people in the right place so the plan gets executed and it's done. I don't have to worry too much.
Mm-hmm.
And in every case, everything we do right now, I'm coming open-handed going, okay, here's kind of the plan. Let's go slow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard for me, because what I want to do is make the plan, execute, and move on to the next one. And I can't do that.
I'm right with you. That's what I
And so that's it's been a really good process for me, just to be, okay, I can say no to this, I can slow down, we don't need all this other stuff, and then just kind of come in open-handed. So it's been a good growth process for me, a challenging one.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I don't like it sometimes, but it's good.
Yeah, I think we all can relate to that in some capacity, for sure. So
yeah.
Well, how can our listeners connect with you, Jeremy, if they have any more questions or just want to hear some more from you? How can they reach you?
Oh yeah, well, it's so like I do a Monday through Friday. I do a little video devotional on Instagram and Facebook. So you could Jeremy Johnson on Facebook, or on Instagram it's my first name, Jeremy, Jeremy _JJ_PJ. Or you can email me at jjohnson@efcc.org. Any of those ways, those are all great ways just to get a hold of me. Heck, my office line is 760-781-2127. Sometimes I check my voicemail. I'm not the best at it, but I do have an office line. So feel free to connect anyway. But I love talking with people. So thank you very much. And thanks so much for letting me be a part of today. This was awesome. You guys are doing great. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you, Jeremy. We just appreciate your wisdom and your support. For those of you who don't know, Jeremy comes and prays with us once a month at the clinic, and such a blessing to the staff. And we get to know you personally and share our personal lives as well. So you're a real blessing. So we thank you for sharing with us today.
Oh yeah, well, come on! I look forward to coming by every month. It's one of the highlights of my month. So thanks for letting me be a part of all that you guys are doing and support you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. I know so many of us hope 2021 is different than 2020, but we have zero control over that. So I hope, as you were listening to this episode and hearing what Jeremy had to say or what Kina had to say, as we've had this conversation, that it just gives you a little bit of encouragement as we go into 2021. Yes, we can make plans, but hold it open-handedly, and just be prepared that things might not go our way, and that's okay. But so much of what we're shared today, I think, is good to remember as we're doing that. If you want to connect with us online, we are on Facebook, just Alternatives Medical Clinic, and then Instagram, we are at Alternatives MC. And if there's anyone that you want to share this episode with, please do it. I think it would be a great resource as we head into 2021. Thank you for being with us today, and we will talk to you soon.